Netherlands, and you wrote that Wilders understands that culture and demographics are our destiny. We cannot restore our civilization with somebody else's babies. This is being condemned by many regions of American politics and citizenry. What did you mean?
Well, of course, I meant exactly what I said, as it always is the case, Chris. And to expand on that a little further, I've been to Europe and I've spoken on this issue, and I've said the same thing as far as 10 years ago to the German people and to any population of people that is a declining population that isn't willing to have enough babies to reproduce themselves. And I've said to them, you cannot rebuild your civilization with somebody else's babies. You've got to keep your birth rate up, and that you need to teach your children your values, and in doing so, then you can grow your population and you can strengthen your culture, you can strengthen your way of life. And that's not happening in any of the Western European countries. France comes the closest to having a birth rate that's a replacement rate, but it's a clear message that we need to get our birth rates up, or Europe will be entirely transformed within a half a century or a little more. And Geert Wilders knows that, and that's part of his campaign and part of his agenda.
Right, but if you want to apply that kind of thinking to America, it seems like a complete contradiction of what we're all about. I mean, this is the melting pot. We are known by those countries that you just mentioned as the bastion of diversity. It is an unqualified strength for us, and it sounds like you're trying to kind of white cleanse our population and saying somebody else's babies. I think that means me, Congressman. I'm only second generation in this country. Who's somebody else's babies?
Chris, we're a country here that, if you take a picture of what America looks like, you can do it in a football stadium or a basketball court, and you see all kinds of different Americans there. We're pretty proud of that, the different-looking Americans that are still Americans. And there's an American culture, an American civilization. It's raised within these children in these American homes. And that's one of the reasons why we require that the President of the United States be raised with an American experience. But we've also aborted nearly 60 million babies in this country since 1973. And there's been this effort that we're going to have to replace that void with somebody else's babies. And that's that push to bring in much illegal immigration into America, living in enclaves, refusing to assimilate into the American culture and civilization. Some embrace it, yes, but many are 2 and 3 generations living in enclaves that are pushing back now and resisting against the assimilation. It's far worse in Europe than it is today here in the United States. But I want us to be looking at that, promoting the birth rate in America, restoring the rule of law, putting an end to illegal immigration, and recognizing that we need to be a country that's pulled together on similar values. That makes us stronger.
That's the exact point. I mean, because it seemed like you were doing the opposite. Like you were trying to say someone else's babies means you're either white or you're not right. And as you know, that is anathema to what America's all about. Can we get agreement on that?
Well, here's actually, if you go down the road a few generations or maybe centuries with the intermarriage, I'd like to see an America that's just so homogenous that we look a lot the same from that perspective. I think there's been far too much focus on race, especially in the last 8 years, and I want to see that put behind us, and I want to be as bonded together. I gave a speech on this on Saturday, and half the liberals got up and left the room when I talked about
because
the
when you
success
say,
and
when you
unity
suggest
of
to
putting an end to the
anybody,
divisions.
but when
they're
you
looking
suggest,
for hatred is the point, Chris.
But hold on a second. Congressman, if you suggest that somebody else's babies shouldn't be welcome in a country, you seem inherently divisive. That's why I keep asking you, what was your intention with this? And you keep to seem doubling down on it. I mean, you said America's got lots of different faces, that's fine, but you keep making this point that this country needs to be about white people raising their birth rate and not bringing in other people. That's exactly what America is not.
But Chris, I never have made that point. I've never said that. I've been characterized as saying that. I've had the blogs out there say I said that, but I tell them, go back and watch the tape, listen to it, just listen to the language. Our language is precise. That's not out there. But I did defend Western civilization that started this last summer at the Republican National Convention. And when I said Western civilization, that launched people that are opposed to Western civilization. That's a big problem. If we have an element of Americans here, and it's a big element, that reject Western civilization, then what have we? This is an effort on the left, I think, to break down the American civilization and the American culture and turn it into something entirely different. I'm a champion for Western civilization, and yes, our English language is a big part of it. It's a carrier of freedom. Right. Wherever the English language has gone globally, freedom went with it. And science, technology has always lifted up the standard of living on average of everybody on the planet. So I want more of that, not less. And there are civilizations that produce very little, if any. This Western civilization still is a superior civilization, and we want to share it with everybody.
All right, you're entitled to your opinion about all these things, obviously. I just want to go back at this one more time, just because it's that important. A Muslim American, an Italian American, a Christian American, a Jewish American, you do realize that they are all equal, right? They are all the same thing. We don't need babies from one of those groups more than we need them from other groups. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that it depends
Why do you pause on a question like that,
families.
Congressman? What do you mean? It doesn't depend on any definition.
Because
you're either an American or you're not.
An objective answer, Chris.
Yeah, but either a Muslim American, an Italian American, an Irish, Scotch, German American, which is what your roots are, either those are all equal things or they are not. What is your answer?
They contribute differently to our culture and civilization. There are moderate Muslims that are equal to, in all these categories.
I said a Muslim American. There are people who have lived here who are assimilated.
In their families.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people teaching hatred in their families who are white, who are Irish, who are Italian, who are Muslim. A lot of people preach hate. There's hate in a lot of different groups. And I get that you have Muslim extremism, that there's a concern in this country about. But I asked you something else. These people are either all equal or they are not, in your view. A Muslim American, an Italian American, German American, like you and your blood, your roots, they are either all equal or they are not, in your mind. What is the answer?
I'd say they're all created in the image of God, and they're equal in His eyes. And if they're citizens of the United States, they're equal in the eyes of the law. Individuals will contribute differently, not equally to this civilization and society, and certain groups of people will do more from a productive side than other groups of people will. That's just a statistical fact. And so,
but it's not as a function of race, it's as a function of opportunity and education. You're not more likely than a Muslim American to contribute to American society. It's about your education and your opportunity, not what your blood is.
Chris?
Yes.
Chris, it's the culture. It's the culture, not the blood. And if you could go anywhere in the world and adopt these little babies and put them into households that were already assimilated into America, those babies will grow up as American as any other baby, with as much patriotism and as much love of country as any other baby. It's not about race. It's never been about race. And in fact, the struggles across this planet, we describe them as race. They're not race. They're culture-based. It's the clash of cultures, not the race.
All right, Steve.
And sometimes that race is used as an identifier.
Steve King, it's important. I wanted to clarify it. Thank you for coming on the show to do so. America is known for one thing, diversity as strength. Appreciate you being here. All right? Now, let's bring in Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Thank you. Let's just pick up on this real quick and then...
Right.
A felony.
I mean, you're right. You know, someone called my radio show and said, is there a legal claim here? I said, at this point, there's a defamation action.
Yeah. All right. So another interview making a lot of headlines this morning is Chris pressing Representative Steve King of Iowa, who 100% stood behind his tweet. His tweet, if you missed it, says that civilization cannot be restored with, quote, somebody else's baby. Chris had to ask essentially the same question over and over again. Here's a bit.
You do realize that they are all equal, right? They are all the same thing. We don't need babies from one of those groups more than we need them from other groups. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that it depends.
Why do you pause on a question like that, Congressman?
They contribute differently to our culture and civilization.
First of all, there was no delay in that interview. That was a meaningful, purposeful pause.
I don't get it. I'll tell you what I don't get. I thought that he was going to couch it and say, I was talking about Europeans, and that they need to worry about the French people, not everybody being overrun by Muslims. That's what I thought he was going to say. So I said, but here in America, it's different, right? Because we are the melting pot. We are diversity as strength. That's how we are heralded
That's
by these
us.
other countries. And I said, so Muslim American, Irish American, Italian American, whatever you are, they're all equal, right? And he pauses.
Had to think about that. He had to think about that. It's something else that he said. And when you watch it a second time, I think this will be alarming to you as well, is he said that the goal for the country is to be homogenous. And I was seated in the green room with an African-American gentleman who works for the program who you know, couldn't believe that that was a statement he just made, because I'm sure in Steve King's mind, the homogeny that we should have is a white nationalist homogeny.
No, look, I don't know what his point is, but I'll tell you.
Here's what troubles me the most about it. I think that if I'm in a cave and I'm Al-Qaeda or ISIS, I love this kind of conversation. I love this being pitched as a clash of civilizations. And it reminds me when on W's watch, there was a banner that was unfolded speaking about the need to win the crusade. That's what they want to portray this as. And I think we play into their hands when we do it.
I just, you know, I hope that people don't hear what he says and say, well, you know, there's a big division in this country. No, there is not. We travel this country all the time, and people always talk about how you cut me open, you cut you open, we're both going to bleed red.